The grid is key to knowing key. So key is a bit of an abstract a concept. I think it's very hard for some people to explain it, but for me, the way I think of key is that key is a family of chords that all work together. If we're thinking about it in chords, the key can also be a scale and that sort of stuff. But today, the main thing we're looking at is chords. And like I said, the key to this is that it's all about bar chords as well. So let me just push this back just a little bit. If you watched one of my other workshops, I talked about the fifth, the root and the third. 5R3. If you haven't seen that one, then there'll be a card. I'll bob a card up here after the fact to point you in the direction of that, so that you can understand how we derive minor chords from the major chords, how they are actually made, so that you understand why everything is the way it is. The chords are not disjointed. Everything is connected on guitar, absolutely everything. It's all connected. So, okay, without further ado, I'll introduce you to this concept of the grid. Now, the grid enables you to find the chords of any key. And this is an important reason why you should know your notes on your fretboard, especially the notes on your E string. I know this from years of teaching, that when most people think about the strings and the names of the notes that are on them, the E string, they know them all right, because probably you've been playing power chords and the such things. So we've got those power chords that can live there, and you know, when you play your power chords, yes, they will switch over onto your A string as well. And what we need to be able to do to play those power chords is to see where the root note is for that power chord, so we can play the correct one in the correct position. Yeah, and it makes life a lot easier. But those power chords are actually really just abbreviations of full chords. Now, if we look at this one here at the 3rd fret, this is a G5 power chord though, that I'm playing here. Now, if I take that G5 power chord and put it into its full version, I get a full G chord. Hello, India. Leah, everybody in the comments there, tell me where you are from. Why this is important, we can abbreviate this shape here, this bar chord, into a power chord. And you know something? I would say that that's okay to use as a blag chord if you are trying to busk a song out and you want to pitch your voice against it. You use this. Now the other shape here, if I look down here, this is an A-shaped chord because it has its root note on the A string. Right? This is an E-shaped chord because it has its root note on the E string. No worries, Paul. So E shapes and A shapes, and these are the two most common bar chords you're going to get. And to be honest, you know, really for the meat and potato of playing guitar, you're going to be able to get away with playing those two shapes in their major and minor varieties. Yeah, so if you want to think of it in that kind of context, like I say, there's that video that I mentioned. I'll put it in the end card, in fact. So we've got an E major or an E minor. We've got an A major or an A minor. That can give us a shed load of chords. That can give us an absolute ton of chords. But the main thing is, where do you put them? And that is where the grid comes in. Because what the grid does is it lays out the key in a super easy way for you to visualize. You know me, everything's about visualizing, because the guitar is all about shapes. And the grid, yeah, as I will show you, and I'm going to take this camera, I'm going to put it over here and bang it on, so over my shoulder so you can see what I'm writing down as well, because I want to make sure that you absolutely get this. There will be a PDF in the description as well. So let me talk about the grid, and let me just talk about key for that matter. Key and the chords in a key are derived from the parent major scale. So say I pick on this note here, this A note here on the E string, and I played the major scale that you guys know as Do, Re, Mi. So if I play that, each one of those notes is the root note of a major or a minor chord, and there's one diminished chord in there. We're not going to talk about the diminished chord because unless you're playing classical or jazz, it's not really going to come up. This is mostly for kind of finding stuff for pop songs, really. This is why you essentially need to know the notes on your E and your A string. Another cool thing about the grid is it informs us where we put our solos. Where do we solo? You know, where do you do it? Because I can guarantee you, most people, what they do is if they thought it was the key of A, yeah, they would play the minor pentatonic there. And that isn't always, well, it isn't actually the theoretically correct place to play that. I'm going to show you where in this tutorial as well. If I count back through this major scale, you can hear I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 notes. This is just a repeat of the first note. That's the octave. Yeah, so we've got those 7 notes, and those 7 notes are the root notes, the notes that give the chords their name. That's what the root note does. There are 7 notes, and they are major, minor, and 1 diminished. Now, this way of setting them out, it's a little bit tricky. I think it's a bit of a stinker to visualize. Because this is so important, I'm going to go over it in a couple of keys here to show you. So, like I said, say this was the key of A. This is our tonic. The key is in, so if somebody says the key is A, then this is your tonic, the tone that determines what the key is called. Hopefully that makes sense. So if that's the tonic, then if I play the Do, Re, Mi, Fa, Sol, La, Ti, Do, then that completes the whole of the A, which is the tonic major scale. Now, that way isn't the easiest way to play it. So a really super easy way to play it is this pattern here. And what I do is I go up in tones, yeah, or steps, if you want to think of it in US terms. So tones or steps. So if I start on this A here, that gives me the Do note. This is Re, Mi. So you can see what I've done essentially as I've gone up on my dots. And it's a nice easy way to learn this is by using your dots. That's what they're there for. Use them, yeah? So Do, Re, Mi. But those 3 notes that I played there are also the root notes for the first 3 chords in the key of A. The chord A, this is going to be a B of some variety, and this is going to be a C sharp of some variety. Now, I just said C sharp there, but if I'm using the visual patterns, I don't really need to know anything other than where my root note is. And this is a very similar idea to the Nashville system. I might have to do a tutorial on that, but we'll wait and see. So 1, 2, 3, that's what we're thinking of that as. So that's the root note for the first chord, chord 1. This is the root note for chord 2. This is the root note for chord 3. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to drop that same pattern in a parallel manner down onto the next string using exactly the same frets. Notice, look, so this is on the 5th fret, this is on the 7th fret, this is on the 9th fret. The next part of the puzzle is we go back to the A string and we play the 5th fret, the 7th fret and the 9th fret. Now if I play those 6 notes, hopefully you should be able to hear the major scale, the Do Re Mi scale from Sound of Music. And I'll just complete it because it'll drive you mad if I don't. This is the 7th note, and then I've gone to the root note again. Ti, Do. Do, Re, Mi, Fa, Sol, La, Ti, Do. But what we're going to do is we're going to forget about the D string. Like I said, we don't want the 7 chord because that's for jazz and classical. We might do something like that later on. We want to get this grid down. Now, as we know, with music, we have 2 tonalities. Now, that's the posh word. The tonality is the mood of the chord, whether it's happy or sad. Now, it's kind of widely accepted that major chords sound happy and minor chords sound sad. Now, these, we have to assign that major and minor tonality on each of these chords. Now, if you look at it normally, there is an order, and I would highly recommend that what you do is you just learn this pattern. You learn it verbatim, just like you might do, you know, elephants and donkeys grow big ears for your guitar strings. Learn it and remember it and memorize it. It's pretty easy once you get your head around it. So the tonalities of the chords in a major key go major, because it's a major key, minor, minor. Notice 2 minors next to each other. That's going to become useful when you see that, when you can see 2 minor chords next to each other when you're trying to work out songs. So we've got major, minor, minor. Then we've got major and major. Note that as well. 2 major chords next door to each other, right? A tone apart or a step apart. Then we get a minor, and then we get the diminished. The diminished is the last chord. Yeah, so we want to memorize the first 6 of those chords. Again, I'll say it again. Major, minor, minor, major, major, minor. And what you can see in that grouping that we have there is that we have 3 major chords and 3 minor chords. So here is the start of the grid. These 6 notes are the root notes for chords 1 to 6. This is a major chord. This is a minor. This is minor. This is major. This is major. And this is minor. Now that can be a bit tricky to see, but fortunately for us, the way it works is that we get these little angled bracket shapes. And just to show you and demonstrate, and if you have your guitar, absolutely try it out. You know, if you've got your guitar out now, if we look at this 5th fret for chord 1, we can see that chord 4 is directly underneath it going south down the strings. So there you can see you've got chord 4, and then if I go up 2 frets, or a tone, or a step, depending on which way you want to think about it, that gives us the root note of chord 5. So you can see there, we get that little bracket shape. Now if I play those as power chords, that is the foundation of so many punk songs. It's untrue. So we've got our major chords. Now that leaves 3 of the notes here. So we've got this one here at the 9th fret on the A string. And we've got the 9th on the E string. And we've got the 7th on the E string. We get an intersecting, or a kind of they couple. These little bracket shapes, they couple with each other. When you get the hand out, it will make a hell of a lot more sense. We get this intersecting shape here. Now the way caged works is that the E shape, you get the root note for the E shape on the E string. If I play an E chord, you can see I play that from the E string itself. That's where the chord starts. Right? Even if it is a minor. what we've done is we've just changed the tonality of the chord. That's all we've done. Like I say, refer to that other workshop. So I'm going to put that A chord on there, and now I could remember, you know, it's another way around it. Major, minor, minor. You see, so I can see that these two minor chords are next door to each other, or a tone apart. Let's say they're a tone apart. So we've got major, minor, minor. If I move over to this pattern that we had on the A string, this was 4, 5 and 6. Because it's on the A string, then what we do, out of the 5 cage chords, we use the A shape. Yeah, so we're going to use the A shape on these because this is the root note. If the root note's on the A string, yeah, it can either be a C shape or an A shape, but in this instance, because we're doing bar chords, it's going to be an A shape. If you look, my third finger is barring a full A shape there. You could play it with 3 fingers, like this, and bar across, but the convention is generally tends to be that we use the third finger to hold down this A-shaped bar chord. Now the thing is, that's chord 4, which is major. We've got chord 5, which is major. We have chord 6, which is minor. Yeah? So if I just recap on those 6 chords that we had, hopefully what you'll hear is the do, re, mi in chords now. So instead of, if I do it as chords, you'll hear the tonality of those chords. It's there, ready and waiting for you to hack it and abuse it. But here's the cool thing. This is super cool. And when I saw it, I was like, oh man, that's just so amazing, because it really helps to kind of decipher the fretboard. If we look at this here, remember I said that this bracket shape here, those are the major chords. And the intersecting bracket shape that goes 9, 9, 7, those are the 3 minor chords. Now this is really useful to know if you want to know how to play things like cadences, which are kind of musical grammar, if you want to kind of get an idea of what that is. So if I play a 5 to 1, that's called a perfect cadence. That means, you know, like the song has finished and you go. Yeah, so thank you, Wembley. Whereas chord 4 to chord 1 is something called a plagal cadence. You know it from church. Amen. Yeah? So the thing is, the fact you can spot all these out, you know how to play it will tell you and inform you of these cadences. Cadences are another tutorial. So let's switch that over onto the notepad. I'm going to do this with pen and paper. I'm old school, yeah, and if it works, it works. If it ain't broke, don't try and fix it. So let me just do this really deftly. And so the grid. Here is a fretboard, and do you know what? It doesn't matter where this is. This is any fretboard anywhere. What I said to you, there were 7 chords, and if you look here, you can see chord 1, chord 2, chord 3, chord 4, chord 5, chord 6, and chord 7. Notice how I've spelt chord 7. I've put a wiggly line around it because it sounds weird, right? And it's got this little circle which means diminished. Yeah, diminished is another story. But what I want you to do is, like I said, you've got to remember this pattern: 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Yeah. Worth noting, Roman numerals in music, if they are uppercase, that would be major. If it was a lowercase number 1, it would mean that the chord is minor, right? If you don't use that convention, you're missing out on the opportunity to actually spell the tonality of the chord, whether it is major or minor. So using this here, you can see that that is going to be a major chord. This is a minor chord, This is a minor chord, major chord, major chord, minor chord, and remember that one was the diminished chord, so I'll just put diminished there. Notice here, chords 1, 4 and 5, they are your major chords. Those are your major triads, you know, your basic bar chords. And 2, 3 and 6, these are your minor chords. Those are your minor triads there. Now, what I can do is I'm just going to shift this over here, and I'm going to transfer this over. This fretboard is anywhere on the fretboard, because the idea behind the grid is that it's transposable. You can shift it from one position to another. That's what transpose means. Trans means move, pose means position. So we can move from one position to another. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to take these 7 chords here, and we're going to transpose them and put them onto this fretboard. And I'm going to put this first, I'm going to put it on the E string there. So that's chord 1. That is our tonic. This one here determines the key. So if somebody said that this was the key of G, you would place that on the 3rd fret. If it was the key of B flat, it would be on the 6th fret. Yes, hopefully this makes sense. If it was the key of F, it would be on the 1st fret. So this is what this does here. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you it goes up a tone, 2 frets. So 1, 2 frets, which you could take to be a step or a tone. It's up to you. It's up to you which flavour you want. So here I have chord 3. Notice chord 1, chord 2, chord 3. They're a tone apart. It's a nice easy spacing for you to get your eye in on. If I come over here, this is where chord 4 lives. Notice major. This is where chord 5 lives, and this is where the root note of chord 6 lives. So essentially, you can see any chord that falls on this string, the root note, if the root note is on this string, then this is going to be an A shape. Anything that falls on this string is going to be an E shape, whether it's major or minor. Now, here I go. I'm going to plot out these little bracket shapes, and I might actually just get some colour. So I'm going to get some, I think I'll get some colour, because that's what it looks like in the handouts. The handouts are absolutely beautiful documents. I'm going to use this peach colour, I think. We'll go peach today. It's a nice colour. We'll go peach. We've got 1, 4 and 5. You can see that those colours there that we've got, well, you can see it forms this bracket shape here. Look at it. Yeah? It forms this beautiful bracket shape there, and that tells you that those shapes that you would play would be major. This would be an E-shaped bar chord. This would be an A-shaped major bar chord. These are all majors, so that's, and this would be an E major, an A-shaped major chord. What we've got to do is we've got to fill in the rest. So I'll put those there. I'll put this colour on here. Look at this. What happens is it intersects beautifully there. So you get these 2 patterns that fit and click into each other. They're almost like Tetris, if you will. Yeah, and this is a completely movable system. So this one, remember I said that this was the key. Now the beautiful thing about this is it's completely about visualization. You don't need to know what the chords are. Yeah, it's beneficial if you know what the chords are. Yeah, but you don't want to be over-analysing everything that you're playing. You want to be moving freely from one chord to the next. So if I were to play the chords here on the E string, this would be an E major shape, this would be an E minor shape, this would be an E minor shape, this would be an A major shape, and importantly, this is an A minor shape. This one, coincidentally, and let me just show you this. So this is really cool. If we do this, also helps you to get your eye in, and this becomes a little hack, because chord 6 what chord 6 is the natural resting place for where the pentatonic should go. Your minor pentatonic, excuse my moving this around, I just had to do it to make the drawing just a little bit easier. So if we look at that there, if I put together the minor pentatonic pattern, and I put my first finger, fourth, first, third, this pattern we all know and love so much. This here, this note here, that is the root note of chord 6. If you want to sound great, then this is the key to that. If you've got this far into this lesson, then bravo, because the thing is, it's absolute gold knowing this. If you can figure out where this is and know what that note is, then this determines what key you are in and where you have a starting point. Because the thing is, it's easy to go somewhere new from somewhere you already know. Now, if you already know this pattern, then this makes sense to be able to move it around. You know, what are the keys that you can access knowing this? You know, you can access all 12 of the keys. So these 3 shapes that intersect, that's how that works there. Wait till I put that PDF back in the description. Before I go, what I'm going to do is I'm going to demonstrate these L shapes, and hopefully you see what's going on here, guys, because it's fundamental. I should say around this long. This is grid 1. There's another one. Yeah, I'm going to do that in another lesson, and the other one is beautiful as well. Yeah, but it gives you a good foundation for playing your chords and everything else like that. So let me demonstrate. Remember, so what we had is we had the 2 bracket shapes. We've got, say we'll use the key of G. Should we use the key of G? 1, 4, 5. Those 3 chords are going to be major. Yeah? Now remember, that's an E major chord. Yeah? That's an E major chord. Now, if you think about it, if I swap my fingers round, move that up 1 fret and bar, we get an F chord. There is actually no F shape. It's actually an E shape if you're thinking that that is the one. That's really an E shape. But this is a transposable shape because, remember, the finger, the index finger that's barring is the same as a capo or the head note. Yeah, because if I move this up here, it negates everything that's behind there. Right, so we've got this here. So let's say we're in the key of G. That's my tonic. There's my 1, there's my 4, there's my 5. No worries, Richard. And Richard, thank you very much for the 20 quid, mate. It was really, yeah, I was quite moved. Yeah. See there what I get: major chord, major chord, major chord. And what I'm doing there essentially is I'm following the peach pattern. Yeah, I'm just following that pattern, and you can see, hopefully you can see that the shapes that I've got here, that's an E shape, standard E shape. Then this is the A shape. Going and then switching to the minor bracket, which is the green one here, 2, 3 and 6. You can see that I've got all my minor chords. So a little pattern like this. I get an A minor shape here on the bar. Yeah? I shift this to get an E minor shape on the bar. An E minor shape on the bar at the 5th fret. Cheers, Rich. Right, so look. Now what that means is that then I can start playing lots of different chord progressions. And I have 6 chords to go at. Because I've got 6 chords to go at, then I can start using those to write songs. A common chord progression is something called a 6-2-5-1. You might know it as Ave Maria. It's also Island in the Sun by Weezer. It's a really common chord progression. It's kind of almost like the Axis of Awesome 4-chord progression. If you haven't seen that, you need to check that out because there's a lesson to be learned in that one. Axis of Awesome 4-chord song. Yeah, so here's the minor. This is a 6, 2, 5. Yeah. If that sounds familiar, well, it should be because it is a really common chord progression. Now what I did is I used G there. I didn't need to think to myself, well, that's a G, that's a C, that's a D, this is an E, this is a B, this is an A minor. I didn't need to think any of that stuff. I just thought of the shapes and how they connected with each other, using the grid to help you to move around. Yeah. And you can always get that feeling of going home on that one chord, on that major chord right at the beginning there. Now guys, I realise this is a hell of a lot to take in. It is a hell of a lot to take in, so you may need to watch this video again and again. You know, I know it's easy to skip on to the next video, but please grab your guitar, make sure you sit down and live with this for a while because the dividends are amazing. Now what I promised, I said to you on this is that chord 6, what chord 6 does is it shows you where to play your relevant and the minor pentatonic that is in tune with the key that you're playing. It's a no-brainer. You cannot play bum notes if you play the minor pentatonic based on chord 6. Let me just demonstrate. Actually, what I'm going to do is I've got my looper here. 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Right. I've got my looper on. I've got a little chord progression there. This is in the key of G. Doesn't matter which chords I played. But if I go up the grid, there's 6. These notes all fit. Now, the cool thing with this as well is I know that that's E. So what I do is I transpose, I shift that so that it fits with that pattern that you already know. We all know and love this one. Yes, so if we've got this going, yeah, then what happens is I know that's E, then that means I can shift that pattern up here. I'm going to play this slowly. Oh, that's a bit out of tune, but it's alright. It's close enough for rock and roll. Right? Yeah, so you can hear it. As opposed to banging that minor pentatonic on chord 1, which we're in G. Remember, we're in G here, so. Right, if I put that on chord 1, I'm going to let the notes sit because I want you to hear how they don't fit. Listen to this one. This one, that one works. This one. Does that one fit? It's horrible. Yeah, that one doesn't fit either. I'm going to get back to the root. So that minor pentatonic pattern that everybody plays, that one, don't put it on chord 1, it sounds awful. Unless these chords are bluesy, then something else happens. because you're going to hit these notes and you're going to wonder why it doesn't sound good at all. You can see. Yeah, all these notes sound and go with the chord. So that means if you know this pattern, that means your survival licks are there. If you know your survival licks, yeah, so all those those things there, your licks and your runs that you love and you know so well. So that's the whole point of this. Now, look, we can change this and we can move it around. It's a completely movable framework. And so if I say, for instance, played it here on the 6th fret at B flat, then all I would need to do is follow the angle shapes. Look, I don't need to know anything else. I just need to know those angle shapes. Yeah, the angle shapes. Here's chord 1. Here's chord 4. Here's chord 5. Brilliant, Rich. Does this make sense? That is going to be chord 1. 1, 4, 5. Look, here's the cadence. Remember what I said about the cadence? This is the finish. Thank you, Wembley. Yeah? Amen. The same rules apply. You're just shifting the whole system, the whole thing. If that's 1, 4, 5, then this is 2, 3, 6. Does this make sense? Does this make sense, guys? Let me know in the super chat. We've got the chords there. Key will be no problem if that's the way you work around things. Look, you want 6, 5, 3, 4. The Chili Peppers, yes, right. So look, let's look at this from this position as well. Look, if somebody said to you, oh, right, okay, you're in a jam scenario, and they said, oh, what key are we in? B flat. How many of you do you think you'd be stumped and know where to start? Would you be fudging around looking for notes? Guessing? Yeah? You haven't looked at this one for a while. It makes so much sense. Thank you, Mark. So hopefully, well, look, chord 6. The root note of this chord is G. I'm going to transpose that note G down to this G down here. If I play my minor pentatonic there, I'm going to be perfectly in tune with the chords. Hopefully this makes sense. We want to make nice sounds. Let me put a chord progression down. 1, 2, 3, 4. Doesn't need to be anything complicated. Remember, this was B flat. 6. That's a G. Now that means I play my pentatonic here. See how that works there? Now, so the cool thing is that frees you and liberates you to be able to jam with your friends. And you know, that's what music's about. It's about bringing joy into the world. And if you can share that joy with your friends, so much the better. which brings me to the end of this lesson. Until next time, I will see you later. Take care.